This is just a really great low-key conversation. I've highlighted these this session and the next one on just based on request, but you know, this is your time as planners, our time as planners to really network and engage and discuss issues and opportunities and programs, and a great way to meet other planners across the state. There's vast knowledge in this room to share, and so we just had a great conversation on the rental program. So if you missed that, it'll be posted online on a variety of different opportunities. I'm Bobbi Lindemulder with Snohomish Conservation District. We've had a couple new people join us that weren't in this last session. We'd love to get to know you if you're okay with introducing yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, I just hopped in like halfway through. Beginning of Maryland, I'm at Park City. I'm not a planner, but I'm starting to do a bit of work in ag, so I'm just here kind of listening.
Great.
I'm Justin, I'm the DSP coordinator.
Hi, Justin. Awesome.
I'm Andrew Wolf. I'm a conservation planner with Blue City.
Awesome. Great.
Got one more.
One more. I didn't see you over there.
Darla Clauser, I'm with Steven CD, and we, resource planners.
Awesome. Cool. Do y'all want to introduce yourself to the new folks? Are we good? I'm Bob Lindemulder from Snohomish. I would love to just do a quick round where you're from, just so we all get to know each other.
I'm Karina Cheever from Washington Conservation District.
Dean Helly, Stevens County Conservation District.
Jay Miro, King Conservation District. Isaiah Venture, Clark CD. Sorry.
Checking term sheets. Renee Skaggs, Pierce CD. Sierra Young, Jefferson County.
Aaron Wolf of Nine.
Lorenzo Trump, Pacific.
Southern County Company.
Nick, hi there, from the.
I'm Kate O'Neill from Snohomish.
I'm Anna Beebe from Washington City.
Sam Brundle, Park City. Jen Clown City. Awesome. Megan Weldon Kinsey. Great. Awesome. So the topic round for this one that came about was I got quite a few, and if you were here the first day, you saw how many new farm planners that we had, and we had a lot of requests for new planners, new staff at conservation districts, never having worked with farmers, engaged with farmers, and that. And how do you work with a farmer? How do you avoid the mistakes? What are the things I need to know? How do you engage in the process on the farm? I was hoping some of the new ones who made the request would come today and just really kind of drill down into like, how do you ... But like, what are some, there's some things that you can do when you've never worked with a farmer to lose instant credibility pretty quickly. One, leaving gates open, right? And like, what are some of the things, how do you engage with farmers? What are some ways you have gained credibility with farmers? What are the steps that you've taken to advance your knowledge of working with farms if maybe you haven't worked with farms? And that's kind of the topic. Is there any brand new farm planners in the house, right? Okay, and Chase, kind of, sort of, yeah. And so I want to make sure that this session is for you folks, but also just what are some tricks of the trade that you've learned over the years on working with landowners, and kick it off there. And then if it morphs into something else beyond that, great. We've got the next 50 minutes to just kind of talk about farm planning do's and don'ts, maybe out on the field. And so with that, I'll just open it up to questions or comments or tactics or.
So Bobby, I'll start this out.
Great.
And I guess it's a do or a don't, but never underestimate the landowner, the farmer. And prime example, I throw NRCS under the bus here, but NRCS employee goes out, we go meet with our dairy farmer, he comes out of the milking parlor, head to toe, speckled, boots up to here, and so she starts talking, we start talking about the NRCS when he's already in plans and stuff. And, she starts giving them not even the 101 course on nutrient management and the value of manure and, and these third generation dairymen. And then, finally, I kind of had to pull it back a little bit. I said, he's got to master the soils. He went to WSU. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing this for many years. So I guess that's my worst case scenario piece of advice. Don't judge him by how they look. He wasn't in a suit and tie. He hates computers, all that, but he could smell the soil, feel the soil, do his applications. I mean, it's been a struggle to get him to do his records, but
I'll kind of add on to that too. I know, like, for me, so I'm from like South Yakima Conservation District, and we have a buttload of dairies. Like, I've talked to Wacom about it. We have a bunch too. We have at least 50 dairies that we have DNMPs for. And I know, like, a lot of our farmers are like multi-generational, but we also have some that are newer. But I think even for the older generations, they're more willing, I think, to adapt to change than we sometimes believe in the first place. Like, I think they're more willing to, like, consider new technologies if they're going to be upgrades to their systems as well. So it's not always like, oh, my grandfather did it this way. I mean, we definitely have some of that, but I've definitely had some that are more than willing to take on precision ag and so.
Yeah, one of the things I think about is, how do you not act like a know-it-all when your job is sort of to know it all? Like, that's like, I think a tough one. You kind of have to like navigate knowing everything, but not maybe speaking down, or like your example, just like assume they don't know anything. It's like just the way you present yourself and the way you talk about things, just like, oh, well, that's, hey, I didn't think about that, or, well, that's a good idea. But so just not making yourself too high, like I'm just speaking to my class because I'm the professor. Like, I think that's an easy one to do for some people, is to be, oh, I'm the professional and you're not.
I usually tell folks, I usually tell folks, like, hey, you're the expert on your farm. Like, you know this ground way better than I do, and kind of start that way. And that kind of gives them a little bit of confidence to, share their experiences with the property. And then I can kind of work my way in. So I always tell them, you're the expert on your property. So start there.
I'll say the key is to listen. And, I know some, because I've been working with them for so long, I know, and we do have a couple dairymen that really love to set you up. Department of Ag rolls through a new inspector every 2 years. So when the new inspector comes, they just play super dumb and try to trap that inspector into, starting to give the one-on-one classes, and up until the last 5-6 years, the Department of Ag didn't really hire technical people. So then they would really get into the trap, they're getting the big 60,000 foot level, how manure is good, and they're just there having fun. I mean, that's their entertainment. They don't get to see the public once every 2 weeks. And then they call me up afterwards. Oh, that was such a great visit. Where do they find these people to hire?
I always like to tell people, hey, this is your time. I'm here for you. So interrupt, change the topic. You don't want to talk about that, ask me a different question, throw things at me. Like, I'm here to help you. So I'll ramble on if that's what you want me to do. But yeah, hey, just whatever you want, like 2 hours, this is for you. You're paying for it, so to speak. But
And then the other trap they'll do, they'll try to get you to tell what the neighbors do. Well, why is that guy doing this over here? You just got, you don't want to get caught spreading rumors across the county.
I found working with so many, especially since the pandemic and people moving out to the more rural areas, is sometimes you need to let them fail Like, you'll go out and you're working with somebody. You know, they've read something on it, they've seen videos on it, they have a certain way they want to do it. You're trying to provide them the best guidance on the reasoning behind why something won't work. You know, you're gonna have issues potentially with X, Y, and Z, having 8 horses on 2 acres. It's gonna be a muddy mess unless you prep it or something else like that. And sometimes you provide them the information. They're not taking the information to heart on how you're trying to solve their problem. I ran into several on where you provide them the info. Sometimes they have to go through the journey, realize that you are providing the best reasonable info. They come back and say, oh, you were right, how do I set this up the right way? And sometimes there's that sector.
Yeah,
of
you gotta
people.
plant that seed first.
You gotta plant the
Sometimes
seed,
they have
yeah.
to ruminate and then.
Yeah,
Or go through
and-
that awful winter. and
Go through the first winter. But then on the other side, like I was just with, I had a referral from the county, went out. They wanted them to do one thing and the landowner was really flustered. Knowing the work that they have put in, like I walked the whole property, saw where they've come in the last 2 years, like all she wanted to do is have a pat on the back. Like, I understand how hard you're working out here. No, it's not perfect. You're getting there, moving them forward. People like to feel people like to be noticed for the hard effort that they have put in. Even if they're not all the way to where they need to be, they want to have the acknowledgement that you understand as a planner, the time, the effort, the money, the hours in work. Regardless of the size of farm or not, people want to be told you're headed in the right direction, you're doing good work. It's gonna take you some more time to get there. That's what I'm here to help you through, and really developing that relationship over time. I'm here for you for the long haul. And set those like guiding principles out is like, I am your liaison between the regulator, between whoever. I'm here for you to support you. Because there's not another entity out there that does this work for them, to know that there is somebody on their side, no matter where they're heading. They're gonna make mistakes, they're gonna make great improvements and that kind of stuff, and just really developing that relationship.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't like to compliment. And we're always focused on the reasons, concerns, the issues, and I think sometimes we forget to praise people and because I feel like sometimes we can make. In the beginning, I think people be demoralized, they're like, you're doing that wrong, we're gonna fix that. And then it's like, oh, but also you're doing a great job. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, my follow-up emails after a site visit, like the first sentence, thank you so much for letting me visit your property. I see that you're doing this, and this, great. Or good, you know, sounds like you want to do a little fine tuning, here's what I recommend to do that. And when I first go out to their farm, you know, I'm like, hey, you know, why am I here? What do you want help with? And then we start there, and then when we're walking around, I'll do oh, you might consider this, you might consider, you know, the things that they didn't have me out for that they might need to do, but I always started out like, why am I here? You know, what do you need? What do you need me for?
We ask people what their goal is.
Yeah.
What are your goals, what's your dreams, what are you imagining?
Mm-hmm.
And then you work in, this is how you get there.
Yeah.
Piece of advice that I've seen past planners make the mistake on, especially in like dairies, is to not confuse the operator, the person doing the day-to-day as the decision maker. Because it makes natural sense, they're managing the land, but I've had them be all ready for a project and they'll be like, oh, but the owner who's never here is the one that has to sign the contract, and they're like, no way, I'm not putting any money into that farm. So I have that person come out. Force them to not put their boots on and get muddy and walk around and see the problem. Because it's really frustrating when you spend 8 months working with the operator, only to find out that they don't actually have any control over the decisions at the farm, which happens more than you think.
Mhm.
Or the matriarch of the family, if it's a multi-generation farm, like maybe she's elderly and she's been out there. But when their son's all gung ho and he says, well, you have to go inside and ask my mom. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure I can do the last one. So I spent a lot of time sitting around a kitchen table. And dairy planning, I know it's also like family therapy sometimes, so. Yeah, it's a fine line, but that's just something I noticed.
I have a related question, which is like, any tips on working with farmers who are renting? Who like aren't necessarily total decision makers?
I just make sure you get the owner out there too, and it's hard sometimes, because sometimes they live in the city, they don't even live close by. But, and that's sometimes where there's an awkward relationship, or maybe the relationship's not good with the two of them, but then now you're kind of trying to bridge that gap, because you're not gonna get anywhere if the owner won't agree to put money or sign a contract. So it's something I don't know if it's just a King County thing, but I have to spend a lot of time with people who don't live in the area and trying to get them onto the property.
I do, when we are working with someone that's renting, we look at like what is, because even when we're working, whether it's a big dairy or like a market CSA farm that's renting. It's like, what's the terms of your lease?
Yeah.
And then what are you actually gonna see? And it's economics, like, is it actually economical for you to make this change? Depends on the practice, but a lot of times it comes down to what's your goals, what's the economics behind different recommendations? Because if it's a 10-year lease, then it might be worth it. But if it's a year-to-year lease, yeah, putting in the effort to reseed a field isn't worth it.
I'd be interested in hearing from, in particularly the newest. And Chase, I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot because it's been a long time since I've been a new planner. And like, what is the most difficult thing? And it's gonna vary across the state, of course, but if there was one thing that you wished you had more help in, or a better onboarding about, or something like that at a district, what would that one thing be? Is it the way the district works? It's like, who makes the decisions in the office? Is it like, if I would have known, like, is it relationship building? Like, what are some of the things as a planner? I'm trying to think ahead of time of like, from a mentorship standpoint, what can we all do to help support new planners at this stage in the game? Or support them ahead of time and get some of these things onto the CTD site, so you guys have more access.
Yeah, I think two of the big hurdles for me was one, just being familiar with NRC, like planning process, and you go through your trainings and stuff, but it's still an inundation in the beginning, a lot of acronyms and all sorts of stuff. Just sitting down and getting that hashed out a little better, and then two, I don't have any sort of farm background, so just like, how are people doing things? What's the typical operation look like? Like what does a cow operation look like through the year? What are your broilers and your layer operation look like through the year, and your process and your markets and stuff like that, and just having that beforehand, because then hopefully, people talk to you like I've been here for 20 years, and they give me a lot of jargon sometimes, and yep, okay, and then work through it, and then look it up later, but yeah, so kind of having that would be helpful, I think.
I'll definitely piggyback on that. So basically trying to find good resources, like, you can flip through the photog and get some of the NRCS tech hubs, but I don't know if you work on the west side or the east side of the state, but a lot of the photog stuff is west side specific. So it's like having a little bit more resources to kind of look some of that stuff up and get a general feel for, day-to-day operations. Some more of the, planting regimes, what's kind of typical from different areas, and even like farming equipment. I'm talking to landowners, and I'm pretty good about walking in there saying, hey, I'm new to this, I'm learning, but I take really good notes, and I have a lot of good resources that I can get information back to you. But they're still throwing out some of that jargon, some of them talking about different pieces of equipment, and I can't picture it, I can't visualize it. I'm trying to figure out how to get access to look at that stuff. Of course, ordering farm equipment catalogs can do something good to some degree, but it's like, where do you find that stuff? How do you figure it out?
The NRCS has a huge catalog of equipment.
It's also very blurry for pictures.
I wonder if some CTV videos on like, this is a beef operation, like 15 minutes. This is what typical sheep, this is what pig producers, or like just some quick things. I mean, they're probably, or collect from YouTube, there probably already is something, but a place where like we could just put on the CTD website that at least you've seen it once. I mean, of course, it's like a fire hose, but you could yeah, that's like a good way to lose a little cred is come in and. I had.
Yeah, maybe a basics of operations, like we have on our, from the landowner standpoint, we have a whole video series on our. It's in our sound coursekeeping programming, but it's how to take a soil sample, how to compost, how to build a waste storage structure. Like all of those kind of things that could be certainly useful, that aren't very long, how to, I did a whole grazing management one, there's a how to take a soil test. Like all of those could be linked, and then like, there is like, I much prefer talking with a small landowner about go get a yearling, couple of yearling steers, grow them out, butcher them, get them out of here and not have to deal with the winter. The problem is with new landowners, it's like, oh, the cats are so cute. A mom and a baby, and now I'm gonna like rent a bull and and having them year round is like, there's a lot of learning on that standpoint, but as a planner, like I really push for, believe me, get the yearling, feed them out, get rid of them. You're gonna be happier in the wintertime, it's less cost, and like, rather than go, how do you manipulate, how do you negotiate that conversation between, I'm gonna do a calf operation versus, I'm trying to feed my family and sell a couple to make it work,
Well, it seems like some of those things would be good for new planners, just to
Yeah.
have like quick, here's all the things,
Option.
like quick options. I know NRCS has like a whole, like,
It will be production series on Egler.
yeah, well, there's like the working with beef producers is like working, the working with series.
The working effectively.
Yeah, but that's like the people options.
Yeah, so I think as a new planner, you're pretty inundated with online training.
Yeah.
All that stuff is great to an extent, but when I joined the conservation district, I had site visits with board members who had, projects that, oftentimes board members know the area and the public and the people that they work with, and so that was really helpful. And then just going out with other planners to see projects that were actually implemented and on the ground is like in that. And the more you can do that, it's way better than sitting at a computer.
And
Where I
tried to go to adjacent CDs.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely comment off on Emmett and Scabbit.
Yeah, when I first started, I hit up, I don't know how many CDs, and I just called them up and said, I want to come and spend a day with you and see what you do. And I would love to get the CTD to a point to where we have, like, I send my dairy planner, he's working in Chelan right now because they don't have a dairy planner, to help mentor their planner into doing some dairies. We've gone over to Okanagan before in the past, and I would love to see more district sharing, or, bring new district employees over to a district for a day, 2 days or whatever. Just to kind of speed up that process, because I get it, like Chase started this last year with us, and I feel bad, like, okay, go look at this video, right? Because everybody's so busy, and there is that, just with Ag Learn alone, like all those things you have to get through the Ag Learn. We're trying to really figure out in the CTD for how do we build up a mentorship program that's truly a mentorship program that can, one, speed up a process for a new planner that help develop networks and relationships. I always try to just call me, have my availability. I brought my cards to put, and I will spend, time on the phone or video calls with new planners anytime they want to call me and help send out resources and that kind of thing. So don't feel like you're alone in a conservation district, especially the small conservation districts that don't have the staff and available opportunities. Like, reach out to especially some of the bigger districts and reach out and ask us for help, because
And we have.
I feel like that's our job as seasoned planners, and also as a bigger conservation district. I feel a responsibility to help new and any other.
Yeah, when we hire a new planner, they shadow me or Megan for about a year.
Mhm.
Where they're really just following us around and because we have the staff, we're able to take that year to really. Have them just basically watch what I do and kind of see how I deal with different situations. And then about somewhere, depending on the person, anywhere from 9 months to a year, I'll be like, okay, you do this part.
Yeah.
And then I watch them and I'm like, well, how'd you do? Like, well. I think it was okay, but I messed up this. I'm like, yeah. And I don't say anything. I'm just like, I'm quiet. I'm like.
There's a lot of times when new
Just-
planners don't have an opportunity to build that comfort zone. They're like, up you go, you know, and figure it out.
Where does the funding come from for that year
Well,
of shadowing?
Well,
it's really dependent on the district.
yeah, it's just, that's, we found, because I've probably trained, well, I trained Emmett. I trained like tons of planners over the years, probably 15.
I'll write training into grants. You know, we have different grants, ecology grants or commission implementation funding or other grants that we have. We also have, we're fortunate to have a rate teach bridges per parcel fee. And, you know, sometimes I just go and argue that, you know, this is the part of doing good business is having really good, secure, trained employees. And I'll still training budgets anywhere I can, just so my staff can get a solid training, but it's not a lot. Even that, it's not a lot. But Chase, you know, we have her job shadow because we do have another planner. And I see it as, you know, from my standpoint, it's coming out of my budget as an investment.
When I started, you know, there was no planner for years in our district. And Jennifer Williams did it maybe 28 years. So she's been a little bit of everything, but it was still the old ways of, you know, once upon a time, it was, oh, composting waste storage structures, they can only be funded up to $25,000. So it was, you know, it was a small picture. And, you know, I don't know, in the swim, like, and jump ship before I drowned. But it was reaching out to, you know, you, Bobbi, and getting set up with Marguerite over at Thurston. Where I'd have to be, her, you know, shadow forever. And, yeah, it wasn't that simple. I love finding the new ways that everybody does things. Because then it's like, you know, you're a genius or a thief, and I'm not the genius. Stealing all of your ideas.
But the Google Drive's for, we're gonna. Yeah.
NRCS is also, I'm NRCS is different under region. Yeah, but like, when I was first a dairy planner, it's really complicated, those major complicated operations, do planning for that. I had no shame to bring the NRCS out with me and just riding their coattails because they've been doing it for so long. And we have really great NRCS staff with experience, and so I would just be like, you tell me what you would plan for this, you know? And I just think sometimes we forget that they're out there as well. I had great NRCS mentors, like back in the day that they came out on field visits with us all the time, where we had, it was me and an NRCS guy out there, and he was a really great mentor. And the really nice thing, and Marty Cheney. Yeah. Like. But if you can get people signed up with NRCS, then you don't. Yeah, there's some great opportunities out there. And- Yeah, always. Pardon?
Martin's been a site visit with one of our farmers, I weaseled my way in no matter what.
Oh, yeah, I had no shame.
No.
I would like wiggle my way in anywhere, and because I was, when I started put in that position, like. Go forth and do good, figure it out, and, you know, I had come from the Forest Service, range management, managing cattle along, and so I had some of the work behind me, but from the conservation district, I'm like, who are you, how do you work, and, you know, all the services are free, and this is a great opportunity, but, you know, I just kind of figured out who the who's were in conservation district land and NRCS, and yeah, I had no shame. I would just call them and bug them, and I was a squeaky wheel, and they appreciated being a mentor. You know, I wasn't hounding them, but
they appreciated being able to share the knowledge, and there's plenty of that out there, so never feel like you're, bothering folks asking about their expertise.
One
And if
project.
you can't find them or don't know who they are, reach out, we'll link you up.
One project I did right when I started was we digitized or put all of the old farm plans into a access database. So I basically read, I don't know, 500 plans that had been written since the 70s to like Renee's plans when she was at the district, and like Baden, who's around here at the commission. And so Ray Schuler, he's Lewis, where's the Lewis County? So I knew all these names of planners, but I saw all the things that we had been planning. Because to enter the things, I read all the, record of decisions and kind of read some of the notes, so I could put some of those entries. And I got this huge knowledge of what we planned for the last 30 years. And some of it was NRCS planning and some of it was district, but it was I read 500 plans, or at least our copies. So that was a good.
Yeah, and I do that with the new planners, and I'm like, go read these plans, get an understanding of what we're trying to do from start to finish in a resource management plan. Go through this agreement system, here's the NRCS training, and start going out in the field, learning, about talking with the landowner, looking at the goals first, and then how do you develop, identify concerns, don't go straight past the manure pile to go look at the creek, right? And then eventually get confident to where you can go out on your own, but, and it's tough for smaller districts, it's tough when you're it, right? And you don't have the reliability or somebody available to help you, but, calling other districts and saying, hey, can you send me an example of what you're doing with your planning? They can black out the names and the address, stuff, and help out with that. I was surprised, Marty's waste management stuff that she did yesterday. I'm still surprised at how many planners don't even know that's an available tool. Right? That is a great planning tool, the waste counts and that kind of stuff. That's where I think, we need to really get more stuff on the CTD website of resources, the how-tos, where you guys can go in there, take a look at stuff. I love videos. I'm a visual learner. Videos are great.
There's also, learning to kind of gauge who you're working with, the cooperator, on how you present yourself on a site visit. Where, or what if we go with what for max pre-planning, what are our best cooperators? If my boss saw you with the board looking like a man from the bank, and some of them were just uncomfortable with that level of expert. They want a neighbor to have a conversation with, and then you get more disclosure, that. Throw the clipboard in the mud, take out my writing, they're more comfortable. Or you can kind of tell some of this is early referral, ecology, they don't want any notes. So it's just and then you get back to squirrel and all that. At least on the first site visit, when you start developing that ability to get down to the actual. Because it's like when companies come over, they clean up. Especially, when they're doing that. So you want to see that it works, right? Where people, one of the big farms I've been trying to get into, he's like, it's always a mess out in December, why don't you come out in July? And not when I want to see it. So, it takes sometimes you can tell driving up to a property. Working farm where it's every piece of equipment that's ever been on that farm is just stacked in the corner there, but at the same time, you go to some place like that, expecting okay, more of a meet and greet, less technical conversation, and then they surprise you with, you know, oh, there's a joint visit with Marla, who's a 5-generation farmer, 10,000 acres of hay, been reading her just ripped into technical notes and feeling about this year. So. Yeah, I guess, well, you know, I'm going for there.
You know pretty quickly. When you get out of your grade, what you look, I guess you learn to realize pretty quickly the type of landowner you're gonna be working with and learn to gauge like what's too much or that, because there's a lot of them like it or not, you're still the government. And there's gonna be that level of apprehension, like Chase and I were just out at a hog farmer that needs a farm plan to submit for a permit. Like he needs me to get through the permit process. And he knows it, I know it. We both you know, he's not doing exactly really following his existing farm plan, but he needs an update. Like, and he still literally wouldn't let us take photos. I'm like, well, I need to, you know, how about, can I take some photos? I want to make sure to take a look at this. So, and no photos. And other folks, they come out, they're like, oh my God, you're here. I'm so happy and excited. And other places I've had dogs certified, right?
Yeah.
There's just really runs that gamut that, you know, it's just really building a rapport right out the get-go, not, you know, and I've done that too, right? Before it's like, oh my God, I got so many resources for you that I'm gonna leave you because it's all such great information. And some of them are instantly like, oh, and others are like, oh, hey, you know, that's what I love about districts is it runs the gamut, right? From those who really could care less to you, but they have to work with you, to those become your biggest cheerleader, your sponge that just wants to learn everything. They don't care if you don't know even already, but help them find the knowledge to get them there. And that's what's so great. And then just building those relationships. I love the relationship. Right?
You know, one thing I like or found works really well, and I'll do it to varying degrees, but I'm not afraid to share who I am. You know, a lot of times I'm sitting at someone's kitchen table, they've invited me in, and even if we don't, I'm at their house, like they're where they live, and that's pretty intimate. Like someone brings you to their home, like, you know, like there. And so I'd be like, yeah, you know, do you have kids? Or if there's kids there, I'm like, yeah, I have 2 boys and now they're taller than me. And like, so don't be like, it's a little uncomfortable sometimes because to share who you are. I mean, I imagine in the smaller districts, they already know who you are if you've lived there a long time. But because that's how they like sort of know you're a person, not just someone from the government. Like, because you are a person and you want them to know that, like, yeah, you have a life. And you know, when I lived in Seattle, I'd be like, yeah, I do some work on a creek and it's fun. And it's like, I get volunteers to come and remodel my house and my sister-in-law's house. And so they kind of know who this person, it's not just Jay from KCD, it's like Jay who's a person. And now I have a farm, so I'm like, yeah, why raise pigs? And this is what I do. And like, you know, I'm sure Bobbi, you share what you've done, and that helps people kind of go, oh, okay. You have cows, well, and I should probably listen to what you're doing, like what you're telling me. So I find sharing is, you know, you don't have to share your life story and, you know, all the details, but a little bit just can crack someone who's a little bit more reserved.
I'm glad you said that, Dave, because I struggle with the fact that, like, I'm not a farmer. I don't have a farm right now. I might later, or like, I've done veggies, but that doesn't really apply to you. I just feel like sometimes, I don't know if other people feel this way, in my work, I feel like this imposter syndrome. You're living your ideals. I'm at a desk and I'm like pushing paper for you, but you go do it. And I feel it's hard not to be like, oh, I can try to say like, I've seen this happen and it works, but I can't say I've done it.
Right.
Or like, so I kind of struggle with that. And like Trevor has a farm. Yeah, I can have Trevor.
But like, I can't do what he does, like doing both things at the same time, but like, and I'll never have a dairy. I don't know how to do that.
Before you had your, what did you do in that situation then?
Well, I just still shared my story, like, yeah, I went to school in Idaho and I grew up in New Jersey, like. It's like
Say, I
every,
learned this in a book and I've seen it, and I know that I'm not doing this, but.
well, but
Trust me,
everyone's
it'd be-
story is interesting, that's the thing, it doesn't have to be, I'm farming, it's like. You're just sharing a little bit who you are, so they don't think you're just government. Black suit.
Well, did you have people that, before you had a farm, did they brush you off like, oh, this guy just learned this in the book, he doesn't know what he's talking
I never felt that,
about? Never
but,
felt it?
yeah.
Are you feeling that way? Or are you
No,
just,
I think it's all my brain.
yeah,
Right, well, one thing that might help with your expectations, like I grew up in a small farm community, and especially with the dairy world. It's gonna take, I don't wanna sound moralizing, but just that it takes years of you just being consistent presence there. Before the next thing you know. First, they'll kind of be skeptical, it's hard, they have so many agency people they deal with too, it takes a long time to distinguish yourself. And then eventually there's a day, well, they call you every single day of the week. And then- That's years, you know, 4 or 5 years to build that rapport. And just keeping a consistent person, you're like, no, I'm here to help, I swear I'm here to help.
yeah, one of the
Yeah.
coolest things I
Yeah.
heard last week, there was like. I'm doing a big project with a dairy owner that, it's an RCPP and he has so much stuff that he's gonna burn through all the rest of our money. So he's gonna also have to have a regular e-book contract, so it was me and like 5 NRCS people. And he's like, all these people just keep coming and going, but you're here all the time, you've been here forever, I know that you're gonna be here to see this project through, blah, 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 so you'll get there eventually. And, you know, I mean, I'm a horse person, but I still have credibility with my cattle people. Cause I'm like, I don't treat my horses like these horse people, I treat them like cattle, I move them around. And that way I've got credibility with the cattle.
And I think, you know, we're in such a unique opportunity, because like, you're like, you can learn from your mistakes, but we get to learn from everyone's mistakes.
Yeah.
And bring that to you. Right. And I think that alone brings some credibility, just the fact that we have this opportunity to see a lot more intimately what a lot more people are doing.
That's something that I have on, if I see something that's really cool or innovative on a farm, I'll ask if I can take a picture, and I have a Google photo album on my phone with all these innovative things, and so if I'm out visiting someone, I'm like, I want to do this, but I can't really decide what I want to do, I pull up photos, I'm like, these are things I've seen that people give me permission to share. Like, maybe this is something that will work on your site, and it's a compliment because they're doing something unique, it's also resource sharing. And yeah, we're the vector sharing information, I'm not the expert.
Yeah, I get thrilled, yeah, you say, oh, this is so cool, can I take a picture of this and share it with other landowners? They just get so, it's such a compliment, so.
And I just try to tell people, I'm not the source of information, I am like the person that could get you to the information. I'm just the pass through.
I would do a lot of the same thing. But I came from doing nothing but farming my whole life to this. And so it was like, oh, do you have a farm? It's like, well, I kind of moved here now. And then, like, the shit in my jar. So it took a while. It was like Margarita a lot, because I'm like, hey, I'm wrong. But it, you know, in time. And then even coming from out of state, they're like, oh, you know, what works in Ohio doesn't work in Washington. But then I noticed that there's like this fine line in knowledge in the producers who throw that line in my face. Where like the ones actually making a living from their farm and agriculture were loved it. Oh, been out there, great, you know corn, hay, best pastures, and you know. So the truest of the true were, it was a benefit to them. And then the just getting into it, we just want any information.
there's that like perfect sweet spot where they have just enough success, or they did it just long enough where they've read all of Joel Salatin's books, so they think they know. You know what I mean? And then it was timing that you can tell it's a real sore spot for me, but
Oh, yeah. What Jill Salatin does, doesn't necessarily work in Western Washington. It's like all these people that are on the Joel Salatin train, it's like. That's where he's doing it, he can get away with those things. It's always a fun conversation.
don't need me from Mason County to tell you that you paid that great. I guess I would say, you know, new planners and stuff, you know, have patience. It comes slowly. Your biggest issue is building the trust, the reputation. You know, once you have a certain landowner that has a good experience with you, it goes like wildfire. And
Oh,
all of
yeah.
a sudden you're flooded out. And as far as, I don't think you have to be technically perfect there, because like I heard someone say, we're really a generalist. And when we need a specialist, we find, you know, we go to Snohomish, Whatcom. You know, I've had Okanagan people paid their travel time to come over and meet with landowners. And you'll find that, and even in our region, DNR is awesome for the landowner assistance, so they have a PhD entomologist on staff that will go out, that Kim Beavis, if you talk to him. He's now, 10 years ago, he was super easy to get out on that. Right now, it's a year and a half appointment, but, you know, he does know what he's doing. He starts talking forestry and wildlife and stuff like that, and we have access to that, and that's why I really love the district system, that most people, once you get started and involved, you stay. I mean, yeah, NRCS poaches a few, used to poach a lot, but you used to be able to stay in one place, so you're still in the same county, in the same region. But, you know, right now there's such turmoil that we're about the only agency that's truly trusted. You know, ecology has to drive 2 hours to come to deal with a complaint, and many times they'll just call me and try to get me to go fix it for them. But, you know, we're absolutely no, we won't be the initial contact on the complaint or an issue. But we're make darn sure that if ecology does send them the letter, that they can come to us, and, you know, we will negotiate it out if they're willing to negotiate, so.
Yeah, and I found that too over the years that just the way NRCS has changed over the years, and unfortunately, it's good for districts, but we're overwhelmed, right, by the districts that go to, and we've had, you know, vacancies for a long time and that kind of stuff that I would love to see NRCS refill a lot of positions, which hopefully is happening now, and really do that engagement level work with planners in the field, and have access to more NRCS staff to have that out there. And then, I mean, the good thing with districts, at least at our district, like if you have an interest, like, yeah, ideally you know a little bit about soup to nuts on everything, the way things operate, but there's always new things coming that we've had some real opportunities, and to where if you want to like specialize in something, ag related, whatever it might be, like, that is real neat. Like, you know, I have one farm planner, she doesn't even hardly do livestock anymore because she is like so focused on agroforestry and all of those kinds of things and that's where a lot of funding is right now. She's built a nice little program, and historically we've always had a horse person, we have a dairy person, we have a beef person, and you know, there's really an opportunity, and I'm hoping at most districts, but it seems like there's a lot of specialists or people that really have like carved out a place for themselves. And then we want to share you if that's possible. Like we have a database in the CTD of specialists where districts call us and say, hey, I need somebody who does, you know, rain gardens, or, you know, they're doing, you know, something specific. And if we can line those up, foresters, range guides, soil scientists, anything specialty that's weird that might be listed in there. And then we can link those back with district managers looking for those people, so we can, you know, they can write a contract or get them out to help do some job sharing or
workload or contracting.
On subject of special ed. Who's working with aquaculture specifically for like conservation plan?
We have a lot of interest in it, and I know that I've worked with, I don't know, 5 or 6 different landowners that wanted to do that, but it never came to fruition. Between permits or markets or something like that, there's a huge interest in new landowners that want to do aquaculture or hydroponics even. But in our area, like, you're just not gonna get the permits to do that without a lot of expense and years in doing that, so I don't know anybody. I mean, one of my best friends used to manage the trout ponds over in, near Omac, I think, but that's been sold and
That's like.
contained in-house, like,
No, it's not shellfish, like Taylor.
oh, like shellfish.
Yeah, I mean, it's like. For us, it's the big. You know, largest employer.
Who works with Blau and those guys up there? Anybody from the district, or they got their own people? Blau oysters?
We have Drayton Harbor Oyster Company and then Lummi Nation, and I work with Lummi Nation and Drayton Harbor. Pretty self-sufficient. He used to work for different federal agencies or state groups.
But Taylor has a former farm planner, remember Erin Ewald?
Who?
Erin Ewald,
Yeah,
she's worked at, Taylor stole her from us about. 15 years ago. She's
Yeah.
supposed to be doing their environmental stuff.
Oh, yeah, they are, but it's like, okay, so we talked with Larryman. And trying to find how, like, our services can overlap with that, like. So there's friction between aquaculture and marine driving.
Right.
Where it's driving. You know, livestock people feel that, you know, they have to make all these changes and give everything up for the show. Like, well, they're not, you know, long for it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then, you know, some of the Thailand folks are like, okay, just keep the water flowing, well, cool, which is great. But then there's others that are like, we could do more. So our board chair is Jay Shellfish. They, you know, 80% of our board is somewhat marine, type woman. Like, you can't go anywhere, maybe out towards graves to get away from salt. So, like, what practice we can engage with? Like, our engineer is doing lighting efficiency upgrades down in California, so we're like, okay, maybe that's an easy way in.
I thought the NRCS had a big shellfish push the last couple of years.
well, I mean, how much have you looked into like the Chesapeake? Because I cannot find it, but there was a grant up in the Chesapeake where they had the shellfish growers and the dairy guys above them. And it was this big, you know, just battle back and forth, like who's needs to solve what problem. And they did this day, it was from a grant, but they sent the shellfish producers onto the dairy and they sent the dairies down to the shellfish bed. Was it? Cause this was in, Chesapeake, that it was like 5 or 6 years ago.
We did it in Whatcom County.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. But it was really, like, there was this big long video that was done, and they learned about, you know, the problems of how the difficulties in growing shellfish production and the water quality, and how many times they're shutting down, and the health district monitoring programs and the water quality and fecal bacteria. And then the shellfish growers learned about what it took to run a dairy economically soundly and the work that goes into it. And it was probably the same.
Yeah, it's the Portage Bay Partnership, so our dairies have an agreement with Lummi Nation. That the dairy farmers are doing a training annually about manure nutrient management, and the CD runs that training. And then in my relationship with Lummi Nation, I'm always watching for grants for them, like there's one that's it might be closed by now, but there was one on like improving harvesting and meat processing. And they have a nursery on site, so we've done some work with them for energy efficiency upgrades on their nursery. We've done restoration, we got commission funding for restoration of the clam beds in Lummi Bay.
Mission funding, what?
Shellfish. We had to ask for a special allocation because the shellfish funding is for improving the water quality upland, not necessarily improving the actual shellfish beds. But there's one bay on our coast that does not have agriculture impact to it. And so that's the one that doesn't get closed, but it also needed to be needed to be improved, so we got funding to fix that since all the other beds are closed.
So.
But you could look at PIC funding. Do you have any PIC funding?
PIC won't fund it, we just asked.
Really?
Yeah, I just had a conversation with Audrey about funding, specifically funding practices in the tidelands.
I thought
And they-
NRCS was funding.
Maybe NRCS
in
did.
Thailand.
Doing like rare planting species, or did that and scope that for the Olympia oyster.
But that's a.
Yeah, they're doing this, yeah, sorry.
We need to, we need to, now we're gonna restart you guys for the next round online. File.